Back on Morning Line, thanks for joining us. Glenn Cranfield's with us, President and CEO of the Nashville Rescue Mission. Do a terrific job. He's a great person for his involvement with us. Been here for a decade, and we're lucky to have you heading up that organization.
Thank you.
We can take some phone calls, 737-7587. We want to pick up where we left off with Ann's phone call. She clearly is disappointed in, how things have been dealt with the homeless in the city. There's a meeting with Jim Schulman tonight. You've said you're involved with the vice mayor, the mayor, the council. Obviously, they probably seek some of your thoughts, and you share with that. Her big thing, too, is concern about women and children. Back in '95, and when Carl Reasoner came on with me and Larry, he talked about it was predominantly older men.
Right.
And that was it. But you say the demographic has radically changed over the last two and a half decades.
It has changed, Nick, and it's still changing and evolving, and it's becoming younger and more families. Particularly when we say families in our genre, we're talking about single women with children.
Okay.
So they're moms with their children. Their husbands left, their boyfriends left, they're seeking shelter and help. They've been abandoned. And so we're seeing that number uptick drastically over the last decade, 10 years.
So when it really started happening, initially, when you're seeing this, where could you put them? Because there's always been the concern, and justifiably so, you don't want women and children necessarily in the same quarters with men.
Right. And so we, since the mid-'70s, we've had a separate shelter for the women and children on Rosa Parks. And so that was built, and it sufficed for a long time. And I'm so excited about what's going on right now. So we are involved in a $20 million capital campaign, and we're almost there, Nick. Keep your fingers crossed.
That's
we're
great.
almost there.
It's a lot of money.
But we have already begun construction on a brand new state-of-the-art facility just for women and children and families. And so we're so excited about it.
Where is that going to be? Where is
same
that?
Same spot.
Over Rosa Parks?
So we have taken the women and children and designated a particular floor just for them at the men's center.
Okay.
And so we've increased security and cameras and all that during the construction period, which will be about 18 to 24 months.
Okay.
And so we are
That's
so
awesome.
excited about it because we've gone across the country, looked at the best practices and the models and the shelters and the environments for the women, children, and families, and we've taken all the best of what we thought was good and taken that and really incorporated it to build this shelter here. So we're really excited about it. So it's going to be very, very, very nice.
And that's something going to what Ann was talking about. What is the difference between a shelter for women and children and one for men, significantly?
Well, the main thing is just a separation.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of folks that think, okay, let's just keep them all together. But in my experience from Oklahoma City and here again in Nashville, we just need to keep them separate. So at the men's facility, we have different floors for the men that are on program and men that are guests. And at the women's center, we do the same thing. So it's just best overall to keep the women and children away from
basically the same type of features.
Men.
A lot of people,
same features.
A lot of people may donate to the mission, but they have not been there. And I've been there. I've gotten lost in that building before walking.
Right.
But I mean, you have kind of like barracks type sleeping quarters with bunks and all of that, and then there's wide open showers that remind me of the showers I had in the dormitory in college.
Right.
You have a large dining room and a really, I think, very functional kitchen.
Right.
What else am I leaving out? I know you have an auditorium for the graduation.
The laundry is a huge issue because when you're dealing with 800 people per night, and we wash every linen every day. And so the laundry is huge. And so I remember my first experience in a homeless shelter and going into the laundry room, and it was like a hotel laundry room.
Yeah,
it is overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah, they're not like the washers and dryers we see in our homes.
No, it's industrial type stuff.
Absolutely.
Really, when you think about it, it's like that kind of facility, like a hotel. A giant hotel.
Is. It really is.
With all these washers and dryers and the like. The other thing I noticed in recent years especially, security's been increased significantly.
Yes.
Doors are really locked. I mean, I was trying to make my way out after the feeding on Thanksgiving on my own. Everyone was busy. All the doors were locked. I had to get someone to swipe me out.
Right.
That's not always been that way. And there's cameras in the more populated areas.
Right.
That's a function of what? Just that you can't just have people coming in and out?
That's true. It's not just an in and out.
Because at one time it was kind of like that.
Right, exactly it was. The day rooms on both campuses are those where they can go in and out the day room. But when you go past the day room into the shelter, then we have a lot of controlled cameras and, like you're saying, controlled access. Because we need to make sure that we're taking care of the folks that are there and that they're being safe. You know, people talk a lot about, well, the staff needs to be safe and the volunteers need to be safe, and that's absolutely true. But so do the people that are accessing the services. We need to maintain safety and security for them as well.
So I'm just wondering, I would imagine, and I don't know if anyone monitors the cameras, but I mean, you probably have your share of skirmishes.
We do.
Disagreements, probably fights on occasion. I know that the mission, of course, is dry. There's no liquor allowed,
right.
No drugs allowed, no marijuana, nothing like that. That's not to say sometimes someone maybe doesn't try to sneak some in, and when you do, can you just talk about dealing with those types of situations?
We have security at every entrance. They go through a metal detector every time they come in the shelter. If they come in, they go out, they have to come back in through the metal detector, and then there's a pat down. And it's really just to maintain that everyone in there, as best as we can provide a safe environment for the people seeking shelter. So the last thing we want is just to have a free-for-all where anybody can come in. And so we have collection of knives, we have collection of different things like that people have.
Can they get them when they leave, provided it's not an illegal thing?
If it's not illegal, sure, they can get that when they leave. But for the most part, you know, they oh, I'm sorry, you know, I forgot I had this, and they put that in the box, and we go on. But it's
if
just
someone sneaks in pills or marijuana and they're caught, I guess you confiscate it and they are ejected.
That's right.
I mean, now if they come in and they say, look, I have a substance abuse problem, how are you able to deal with that?
Well, we have counseling, we have case managers and all that for those that are seeking help in that area, but we cannot allow, to the best we cannot allow those type of pills, marijuana, and different things to circulate throughout the mission. We can't do that. So we have a very strict policy. There's no drugs, no liquor, no alcohol, none of that. And so if it is found after you're in the shelter, then there are consequences. You may not be able to come back to the shelter for a week, for example. There's different things that we try to maintain security and safety as best we can.
Part of the recovery or help for some of these people to get back on their feet, oftentimes for many, is there's a strong faith initiative there as well. But that's not required, is it, necessarily? If someone comes in and for whatever reason they're not religious, I mean, how do you deal? I know there's prayer sessions, and faith is very important to a lot of people, but not everyone. How do you do that?
Well, faith is very important to us. I mean, that's who we are.
Right.
We started, Nashville Rescue Mission started as an act of faith and an act of the gospel of caring for the poor. So it's very important for us. That is our identity,
of course,
who we are. And so, as you're saying, though, there'll be people coming through that are
various religions,
from various religions or no religion, and there is no force to do that, and you don't have to do that to be served. When I first came a decade ago, I think on Sunday you had to go to chapel service before you could have a meal. And so I remember talking with somebody at the it was at the food bank, and said, you know, we serve, at the time, 12 to 1,400 meals a day. How come we don't have a relationship with the food bank? And she was very polite, and she said, well, that's because you require people to go to chapel service before they can eat.
It's kind of like tit for tat, and you're like, well, you know.
And I said, and I just looked at her, I didn't know that. I was just like a week on the job, right? Here in Nashville, and I said, really, do we do that? And she said, yes, you do. And I said, well, as of today, we do that no more. I mean, because we need people to come in and receive care. To me, the gospel is more effective if it's shown in shoe leather. Another example, I can tell you about the love of God, right? Or I can show you the love of God.
Of course.
And so everybody's been told they need to see that in action. They need to see love in action. They need to see compassion in action. They need to see the gospel in action. And so to require somebody to do that, tit for tat, as you're saying, to me is not a real example of the loving gospel, but to show them, to walk through them day by day, their life situations and so forth. Feed a guy when he's hungry, right? You know, the Bible says in Matthew 25:40, I was hungry and you told me to go get a job. No, it doesn't say that. It says I was hungry and you fed me, right? And so that's what we try to do.
And I would bet because of that, there may be some who come in that initially are not, you know, spiritual.
Right.
But they see it and witness it, experience it themselves, and they become so.
Absolutely.
Because you let them in, which is the way to do it.
That's right.
That is the way to do it. Listen, we'll take a break on that note. We'll come back. We're going to continue our conversation with Glenn Cranfield with Nashville Rescue Mission. And we'll talk more later in the show, too, about how you can help or volunteer there as well. Stay with us.